I now turn to the second major figure in the Democratic Party, Woodrow Wilson. Now, Woodrow Wilson continues the tradition of bigotry, of racism in the Democratic Party. Not slavery, because Wilson is elected in 1912. The Civil War, of course, is a generation behind. But what Wilson does is he expands the reach of racism in the federal government. Here's a clip of Wilson from one of my movies. And this one shows Wilson expanding segregation through the federal government and the Republican activist Ida B. Wells protesting against it. Listen.
Wilson authorized members of his cabinet to reverse and resist integration with blacks. In 1914, Ida B. Wells and a group of black leaders confronted him about his racist, discriminatory policies.
Mr. President.
Gentlemen, Mr. Trotter, and you must be Ida Wells.
Mr. President.
Of course. I understand you have some concerns.
You have fired most of the government's black supervisors. Your department chiefs have assigned blacks separate workrooms, lunch halls, and toilets.
Segregation is not a humiliation, but a benefit, and ought to be so regarded by you, gentlemen. Oh, I do approve of the segregation being attempted in several departments of the federal government. It is distinctly to the advantage of the colored people themselves.
Yeah, that's from the movie Hillary's America. By the way, it begins with my interview with the historian and civil rights scholar Carol Swain. Now, Wilson not only expanded segregation, but he also revived the Ku Klux Klan. Many people don't know the Klan, which was started in the late 19th century, was shut down by the Republican Party. But Wilson brought it back. He showed a movie in the White House called Birth of a Nation, and that led to a Klan revival nationwide. So here again, you have the progressive Democrat, Wilson, fostering segregation and racism. The Democrats consolidate their reputation as the party of many of the crimes that are the most vicious in American history. The Democratic Party did them. Now, I want to focus on this term progressive because today we have a progressive Democratic Party. But what does progressive mean? Well, it comes from the word progress, but progress in what direction? Well, it turns out that for Wilson, as for Democrats today, it's progress away from the founding. Progress is defined as a repudiation of the principles of the founding, and Wilson was very explicit about this. He was the first president to attack the American founding, and he attacked it in a very interesting way. Now, I'm now reading from Wilson. He's talking about the founders. And what he basically says is that the founders' ideas are outdated. He says the founders basically were Newtonians. They thought of society as a kind of self-running clockwork machine. But, says Wilson, it's not like that. I'm now quoting him. He goes, government is not a machine, but a living thing. It falls not under the theory of the universe, but under the theory of organic life. It is accountable to Darwin, not to Newton. Quote, society is a living organism and must obey the laws of life, not the laws of mechanics. It must develop. So that's what Wilson means by progress. He means sort of evolution. He's appealing to Darwinian evolution. Now, the simple truth is that if you reflect on Wilson's analogy, and by the way, Wilson used to be the president of Princeton. He thought of himself as some kind of major intellectual, staying, au courant or in line with the scientific currents of the time. But the simple truth is that this idea that progressivism is somehow in line with evolution or Darwinism is complete nonsense. And let me try to explain. Think of what Darwinian evolution means. Well, it is basically about creatures struggling to survive in a competitive environment. Some live and others die. The ones that live pass on their adaptive traits to successive generations. That's how species evolve. That's what Darwin means by progress. Now, the key point, and Darwin's very clear about this, is that evolution operates without the need for supervisory planning. or design. Order is spontaneously generated through adaptive behavior at the local level in varying competitive environments. So think about this. This sounds exactly like what free markets are. Sounds like how free markets operate. There's no central design, there's local adaptation. Companies that are successful continue, those that are not successful perish. So the point is that Wilson doesn't even know what he's talking about. This is a characteristic trait of Democrats. They put themselves in their high chair. Well, let me explain it to you. And for Wilson, the key was centralized planning. That's what he means by progress. He means planners sitting in Washington, D.C. that organize society. And idiotically, he thinks that this is somehow related to Darwin. Now, when Wilson first ran for president, he was competing against a socialist, a man named Eugene Debs. And by the way, Eugene Debs is a big hero today for Bernie Sanders. He has a picture of Eugene Debs in his office. And Debs was a socialist in the classic sense. Debs would, Debs praised the Russian Revolution. He loved the Bolsheviks. I'm actually quoting him here. We will transfer the title. Well, I'll do it in my Bernie Sanders accent, We will transfer the title deeds of the railroads, the telegraph lines, the mines, mills, and great industries to the people in their collective capacity. We shall take possession of all these social utilities in the name of the people. That's Bernie Sanders. This is Dinesh doing Bernie Sanders doing Debs. But the point being that this is too extreme. This is explicit socialism. And so Wilson realized we can do all this, but we need to replace the socialist name with the progressive name. In other words, let's do creeping socialism instead of instant socialism. And in this way, I think Wilson inaugurated the trajectory, the path in which the Democratic Party has continued, the party of introducing socialism bit by bit. It was started in a way by Wilson, continued by FDR and LBJ, and then taken to a completely new level by Obama, and now by Biden.